We are back from Super Bowl week in San Francisco, and we're back in the Chat Sports studios. Welcome into Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr. We have some breaking news to get to here as the Eagles have hired a new offensive line coach to replace Jeff Stoutland. And then on the back half of the show, what the Eagles must do to catch up to the new Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. It's all coming your way right now. But let's begin here. Here on Eagles Now, this is your go-to home for breaking news. When there is a developing story, when there's breaking news, we give you a video faster than anybody because we're built differently here at Chat Sports. We're always bringing the heat here on Eagles Now. So if you want to become a more informed Eagles fan and stay up to date with all the latest Eagles news, lock us in and hit that sub button. Let's get to 145,000 subscribers as soon as possible. As for that breaking news on this Monday morning, February 9th, the Philadelphia Eagles are hiring a new offensive line coach to replace the legendary and future Hall of Famer Jeff Stoutland. And this hiring by Sean Mannion, the new Eagles offensive coordinator at just 33 years old, Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, this Eagles organization is vitally important for the Eagles. Jeff Stoutland is one of the best offensive line coaches in the history of the National Football League. He coached 5 All-Pros during his 13 years with the Eagles. A player along his offensive line made it to the Pro Bowl in each of his 13 years. 2 running backs in LaShawn McCoy and Saquon Barkley led the NFL in rushing yards. And Jeff Stoutland did a great job of developing, of course, players along the offensive line, but maximizing them. And a big reason why the Eagles have been one of the most successful teams in the NFL over the last several years, what's been the foundation of their offense? Their offensive line. Who's put that offensive line in a position to succeed, having that unit playing extraordinarily well? Jeff Stoutland. And so the Eagles are bringing in Chris Kuper as their new offensive line coach. Here's some background on him. 5th-round pick out of North Dakota by the Broncos in 2006. He had a long and successful playing career from 2006 to 2013. He started in 79 of 90 games in 8 seasons throughout his NFL career, had a lot of playoff experience as well, and he's going to bring leadership to this Eagles team. He was a 3-time team captain while with Denver, won the Ed Block Courage Award. He signed a 5-year, $25.5 million contract in 2010, so he was a highly regarded player who earned a bag. He did suffer a bad ankle injury in 2011. And that really ended his playing career. I think he played 11 games total in the following 2 seasons. After that, just was never the same guy. He was the Vikings offensive line coach from 2022 to 2025. His Vikings O-lines never performed all that well, but I think context is really important. The talent wasn't always there. This past year especially, there were a lot of injuries, and I don't think Kevin O'Connell did him a lot of favors because he would always stray away from the run. Those offenses were never that balanced. This past year, they didn't have quarterback security at all. And when your offensive line has to pass protect so often, they can't get in a groove because the head coach isn't running the football all that often. The offensive line is put into a position where it's hard to be successful. Some familiarity here between Kuper and this current Eagles offensive coaching staff. He overlapped with Sean Mannion when Mannion was a player in 2023. And then Chris Kuper actually was on Vic Fangio's staff as an assistant offensive line coach from 2019 through 2021. Now, what happened with Minnesota? He was not retained by the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell after his contract expired following the ending of the 2025 season. And I just mentioned some of the injury problems he had to deal with up front for Minnesota this past year. 25 different offensive line combinations for that Vikings team this past season. I will say, this hiring makes a lot of sense for what Philadelphia wants to do offensively and what they want to become. He was drafted by Mike Shanahan while with the Denver Broncos, blocked for Peyton Manning at the end of his career. He started coaching under Adam Gase, then Fangio, and Kevin O'Connell. And Kevin O'Connell coached Sean Mannion. Kevin O'Connell is from the Sean McVay tree. Kuper overlapped with Mannion when Mannion was a player. Kuper drafted by Mike Shanahan. Mike Shanahan is the father of Kyle Shanahan. And so you see the ingredients of this LaFleur, O'Connell, McVay, Shanahan tree, which is this new era of offense that the Eagles are entering toward and into. Now, I will say, this is a huge offseason coming up for the Eagles in general. A lot of question marks they need to address, but especially along the offensive line. Jordan Mailata is a fantastic player. He was not good in 2025. Is Landon Dickerson going to retire? If he does, you need a left guard. Cam Jurgens couldn't move and played poorly this past season. Do you have to find a new center? What's the future of him? Tyler Steen was fine, but is he good enough? And is he a scheme fit at right guard? Lane Johnson, is he going to return, being that he's 35 years old? So I talked with Greg Cosell on Friday about Jeff Stoutland leaving the Eagles. If he was surprised, he wasn't really, and how there's going to be a transitional period for this Eagles offensive line. And Cosell, who's been an executive producer at NFL Films for nearly 50 years, said the Eagles might have to retool this offensive line scheme-wise, but also because of the health with that unit looking ahead into the future.
In this transitional phase, new change at offensive line coach and with a new run game coordinator coming in, were you surprised about the Jeff Stoutland news? Not really. Your reaction to that, and why you think this could be beneficial for this Eagles offense moving forward?
Well, I guess in some ways I wasn't surprised, just because the run game with that sort of McVay Shanahan style, which is that's Mannion's background, I think that there's a specific kind of run game that is taught. And look, I'm not saying Jeff Stoutland doesn't know that, but I think they wanted to bring in someone, who really is schooled in it and starts from scratch and teaches that. Now, they've got some potential O-line issues. Jurgens did not have a really good season, and he was hurt a lot. There's a lot of talk about Dickerson now. He's a guy, unfortunately, that's been injured so much going back to college. I read a report that, he's considering retiring. I mean, they might have to retool that whole offensive line. I mean, Lane Johnson is 35, 36? Who knows what he's going to do? Unfortunately, and I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but unfortunately he's been hurt a lot. You get older, father time catches up to everyone. So they probably have to retool the O-line, and they might look for a different kind of player given the new scheme.
The legendary Greg Cosell right there, echoing a lot of my thoughts here on the show. So with that, we pop up today's poll question. I want you to be honest with me. A lot of changes made to this Eagles coaching staff. A lot of you have been asking for this offense to look different and more modern day. So do you like the changes being made to this offensive coaching staff? Type yes or no. Share your thoughts with me down in the comment section right now. Coming up next here in just a moment, what the Eagles must do to catch the new Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, because the Eagles are no longer defending Super Bowl champs. We'll get to that, but first, today's Philadelphia Eagles Now made possible thanks to our friends at PrizePicks. Shoot your shot on PrizePicks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, PrizePicks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. PrizePicks makes every dunk, every dime, every board that much more exciting. So don't miss the chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in from all of your favorite sports. Anything from basketball, baseball, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, esports, and more now that football is in the rear view. And PrizePicks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out of those winnings before the game even finishes. How about a 3-pick power play? Let's talk some hoops here. LaMelo Ball, more than 19.5 points. Charlotte against Detroit. James Harden now on Cleveland, more than 8 dimes. And then Nikola Jokic, more than 12.5 rebounds. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So Super Bowl 60 going down last night in the Bay Area, Levi's Stadium, Santa Clara. The grass was in pristine shape. We had excellent weather, and I think it was somewhat refreshing to see a Super Bowl outdoors especially when you look ahead over the next 10, 15 years. Outdoor stadiums are going to be very rare. I was not surprised by this result at all. I picked the Seahawks to beat the New England Patriots after championship weekend, and then after being around Seattle, being around New England, being on Super Bowl Radio Row, I became even more convinced that the Seahawks were going to win this game. And my thought was, when I looked at the matchup, all across the board, I could not find one area really where I thought definitively the Patriots were better than the Seahawks. And it really came down to this. This Seahawks defense, a generational type of defense, right up there with the Philadelphia Eagles from last year. And their defensive performance, dominant, still not as good as the Eagles last year against Kansas City. But they swarmed Drake May all throughout the night. They're so well coached at all three levels. They have talent, depth, length, speed, physicality, and they play a violent form of football. So the Seahawks beating the Patriots last night, 29-13. It's not like Seattle did anything crazy on the offensive side of the ball. Sam Darnold, 19-38, 202 yards and a touchdown. Kenneth Walker won Super Bowl MVP, a rare nod for a running back to win that award. 27 totes for $135. Cooper Kupp, 6 catches, 61 yards. His second Super Bowl as a player. And then New England. They just couldn't really do much on the offensive side of the ball all night long because that Seahawks defense was just elite. Drake May, 2 picks, also had a fumble which got returned. I guess it was an interception because it didn't hit the ground. Ramondre Stevenson couldn't get anything going on the ground because the Seahawks defense, probably the best rushing defense in the NFL. And then former Eagle Matt Collins with a good game. 4 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. Wouldn't hate the Eagles bringing him back. I think that he could be an excellent number 3 or number 4 wideout. The Seahawks offense against New England, 335 yards of total offense. They were able to move the ball, but Jason Myers was one of the stars of the game. They had to settle for a lot of field goals. 4.7 yards per play. It's not like Seattle was able to generate a bunch of explosive plays and move the ball at will. That Patriots defense is really good. Sam Darnold, under 200 yards passing. I did think that Seattle's run game was really good. Kenneth Walker, I said this during championship weekend. He's been one of the more underrated backs in the NFL. The big thing here, no turnovers. Time of possession, pretty even. The big thing for New England, they turned it over 3 times. 331 yards of offense, 4.9 yards per play. A lot of that came in garbage time when the game was pretty much already decided. Drake May with the passing yards, who really cares? The big thing here, and Kyle Shanahan talked about this during the pregame show, if you can't run the ball against the Seattle team and against this Mike McDonald defense, they're going to play 2 high safeties, they're going to take away explosive plays, and it makes it impossible to move the ball consistently and generate those explosive plays. I also come away from this game with a similar feeling that I had coming out of the NFC Championship game. What a blown opportunity this year for the Eagles. The fact that they got bounced in the wild card round, very disappointing. They had arguably more talent than any team across the NFL. If Philadelphia somehow made it to the Super Bowl, they would have beaten New England because they were way better with New England if they played up to their talent level, up to their potential, like we saw in 2024. And I think Philadelphia could have beaten, if they were playing good ball, if their offense was just solid, not even great, any team in the NFC, except for maybe the Seahawks. I think Seattle would have matched up pretty well with Philadelphia. But shoot, if the Eagles got that number 1 seed, if they hosted that game at Lincoln Financial Field, I don't think the Seahawks go into Philadelphia in the snow because it was snowing that weekend and they beat the Eagles. So a blown opportunity for Philadelphia to realistically go back-to-back and to defend their Super Bowl championship. What a job by John Schneider. The Seahawks win the Super Bowl. His second as the GM. He joins Howie Roseman as the only GMs to win 2 Super Bowls with 2 different head coaches and 2 different quarterbacks. And from his first Super Bowl championship to his second, no overlapping players at all. And now Seattle, coming off a Lombardi trophy, as they're set to have another parade. They have the 6th most cap space in the National Football League going into this offseason. And so that brings me to this. The Seattle Seahawks are your new Super Bowl champions. The Eagles no longer the defending Super Bowl champions. This is what Philadelphia must do and fix this offseason to catch Seattle and reign supreme in the NFC in 2026. The Eagles just need to fix their offense in general. The 2025 version of this Eagles offense would have no chance against this iconic Seahawks defense, which is one of the better defensive units in recent memory. A big thing for Philadelphia, their offensive line has to get healthy. It has to get on track, and Howie Roseman might have to rebuild that unit given the uncertainty around Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, and Lane Johnson going into next year. The backbone of these Eagles teams that have been successful over the years has been their offensive line. But last year, they were horrible, and they couldn't open holes for Saquon Barkley. If you can't run the ball against Seattle, Kyle Shanahan said it during the pregame show, they'll sit in that too high, they'll take away explosive plays, and they'll make your job so difficult as an offense. And with that, what did the Eagles not do this past year? They couldn't generate explosive plays. The scheme was vanilla. The play calling was predictable. Kevin Patullo did not put A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, or the other playmakers in a position to be successful, to make plays downfield, to have and generate splash plays. The good thing for the Eagles, this Seahawks defense, they dominated New England, and they swarmed Drake May all throughout the night. They consistently got home with 4. That was the formula that we saw from the Eagles last year in the Super Bowl when they caused destruction against Patrick Mahomes. This Eagles defense, like the Seahawks defense, in a good spot moving forward. It all comes down to Philadelphia fixing their offensive unit. That's just what they have to do. Because the offense from this past year, it's not going to play moving ahead. And that's why the Eagles are changing the scheme, changing the philosophy. And that's why it's going to look a whole lot different than in previous years. And I like that. Don't forget to give me a follow on X, Instagram, TikTok. I'm also on Facebook, Chase Senior Chat Sports, at Chase_Senior on those other platforms. I appreciate everybody who came up to me all throughout this past week around the Bay Area, being very complimentary of our coverage. Big things in store for this offseason.